We'll call the meeting of the Finance and Human Resource Committee to order. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Daniels.
Here.
Ermeling. Carr. Lobsarov.
Here.
Lanao.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Silver.
Here.
Public comments. I just have one, and that's Lisa Beck. Lisa, would you please give your name and address?
Lisa Beck, 1808 Cortez Lane. Just two quick things, I'll leave you alone. I showed it out Mike about the last meeting, or at the last meeting, about all the work over the last month. He did a great job on Public Works, so I'm trying to call him out at every meeting, because I can't even imagine what he had to go through after that snowstorm. And I have to bring up the uniform stuff, it's just kind of sticking in my craw. So I know it's on the agenda for you guys to look at, but if every employee gets safety apparel, every employee gets shirts plus hats, every employee gets $300 for 2 pairs of boots or a pair of boots or pants, however they want to use it. If we canceled Cintas to save time and money, why don't we save the money and maybe not do the highest amount in there? Because I think there was prices in there for different areas, different cities on what we could give extra for the employees. I know you're not gonna agree, but I'm wondering if we can cut that back a little instead of going up to the proposed amount. Either not have it or get a lesser amount. That is a lot for somebody to get. I don't know any other company out there that offers that kind of thing. I know it's really peanuts when you're talking the whole budgetary amount, but that's still a chunk that if we decreased it down, we could save it somewhere else, so. I just had to throw out my 2 cents, you know me with budget, so that's all I had, so thank you.
Okay.
I told you it was quick.
Okay. Is there anyone online that has?
We do have some online, but just to reiterate, if you had a comment for public comment, now would be the time to take yourself off mute. No one did.
Okay. So then we go minutes from previous meeting, approval of the minutes of February 16th, 2026. What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
By Steve. Go ahead, second.
I'll second.
Second by Stephanie. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Acknowledge work products transmittals. 5, February financial report. Any questions or comments? Okay, do you want to do these, acknowledge one by one, or do you want them as a group?
Do them one by one.
Pardon?
Just go one by one.
Okay, so I need a motion to acknowledge.
I make a motion to acknowledge the February 26th financial reports for all funds.
Motion by Steve.
A second.
Pardon?
A second.
Okay, second by Eden. On the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Item 6, TIF 1 and 2 detail reports for February. What's your pleasure?
I'll move to acknowledge.
I know it is. I can never say your name right.
It's not a big deal.
No, it is. I should learn it actually. You'll have the second. Second by Brett. On the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Legal details for February. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve
By Steve?
or acknowledge, yes.
Acknowledge, yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Stephanie. On the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
educational presentations and reports. Discussion of public works operation and budget. I do believe that would be Michael.
All right. So I know there's been a lot of talk about budgets and, the numbers, and I guess I always think before talking about the numbers is good, but I think it's sometimes important to know what we do with those numbers and the services that we provide with that. So for public works, it's maybe a category that if you don't know what it is, it maybe doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but in general, it's our assets, it's our personnel, it's our management, it's our policies for managing our infrastructure here in the village. So the infrastructure is our, almost 119 and a half centerline miles of road. So a centerline mile of road is, start to finish. So it's, your residential street, if you have a mile of that, that's 2 lanes. Schofield Ave is a 4-lane road. So a mile of Schofield Ave, as far as statistics go, as far as the state is concerned, it's a mile of road. If we have to plow that, we're plowing 4 miles of road instead of 1 mile of road. So just one of those things, but as far as the state is concerned, they only care about how many centerline miles of roadways we have. But then we have, over 50 pieces of equipment to maintain that, about 114 miles of water main, a similar 103 miles of sewer, sanitary sewer, and then another 70 miles of storm sewer. So that's a lot of underground infrastructure for the most part that not a lot of people see or notice until it no longer is functioning for them. But the public works side of things, so water, sewer, and storm are enterprise funds. So this will really just revolve around the general fund component, which is our street maintenance, which is kind of our summer and winter traffic control. We do have our Ryan Street recycling site. So that's our topsoil, recycled asphalt base, sand, anything related to yard waste is part of our refuse recycling fund. So that is separate. And then street lighting is the other major category. So I have the overview. I know in the packet, you could always drill into, I think, a little more of the detail there. So in 2026 compared to 2025, we did decrease the public works budget by just not quite $26,000. So it was a 1.1% decrease. So I guess maybe in past meetings, when I hear people keep saying that we keep increasing, it's a little frustrating at times because we do our best to try to keep that balanced and as low as we can. The next slide kind of shows our kind of 5-year history here. For the most part, we've stayed pretty consistent. In 2024, we kind of hit a high point. In 25, we went down a little bit. And then 26, we decreased again slightly. Our summer street operations is our biggest component, which a large part of that is our contracted services. That's what we're paying people to crack seal coat, and kind of put asphalt treatments all over the village. Winter maintenance is primarily our staff time to go plow the streets. It's salt and vehicle repair, so plow blades and some of those items, and then street lighting. So just to keep the lights on in the community is more than 10% of our public works budget is just paying for the electricity for the lights around the community. So those 3 categories, that's 93% of the cost of kind of the transportation network we have here. So looking at street operations a little more, our staff is about 500,000 of that $1.4 million number. In 26, we have $600,000 allocated for the contracted services. Equipment expenses, that's, repairs to trucks, new tires, replacement tires for end loaders, graders, gas, fuel for the equipment, and then our, signage and painting. So, street signs, stop signs, yield signs, our centerline painting, crosswalks, all that is, what we put in to make sure that we've got, brighter lines. I know coming out of winter here, you can definitely see where stuff can maybe wore off from plows or other items. So we try to get that bright again as everybody gets back out into the community and using those, using our facilities. So just kind of a couple of the pictures there. So, the crack sealing that we do, these are all pictures of our staff doing the work too. These aren't contracted, so we do a fair amount of in-house crack sealing. We do rebuild roads, we grade roads, we cut trees, we pour sidewalk, curb and gutter, we paint crosswalks, we shoulder streets. So our staff is, I want to say, pretty talented. We do quite a bit with what we have to try to make sure that we do stretch our dollar as far as we can. So in 2026, this is our planned contracted work. So we're treating about 7.2 miles of roadway, which is a little over 6%. And then I just kind of always throw a caveat. I don't always include the crack seal, as that's we do try to crack seal about 20% of our streets every year, just to maintain that. So between contracted services and our own staff, just so once every 5 years, we can get to those asphalt streets to make sure we keep water out of them as best we can. Some streets like Schofield Ave, we'll try to crack seal every year or every other year, just because they're more high traffic. And if you start letting too many cracks open up, those can deteriorate a lot quicker. Whereas a side residential street, an open crack probably isn't going to cause a lot of issues with minimal traffic on it compared to a heavily traveled road. So sometimes people will say, how come you haven't crack sealed my road when you've crack sealed the Jelnik or something that I drive on every day? I know you do that every year. Well, we do that every year because you do drive on it every day versus the maybe 20 people that drive on your road to get to their house. So go to the next one. Just kind of trying to keep track of the data. We have tried to increase our maintenance efforts annually, so you can kind of see that from 21 through 25 there. We have increased our miles of treatment. One of the things with the 26 maintenance plan, looks like it's less miles, but for the most part it is about the same. It's just we have Stone Ridge Drive and Barbican and Community Center Drive, Westview Boulevard, in some of our Gilsonite streets that they're 4-lane roads. So the mileage there doesn't always pick up as well as it should be. Then next couple slides talks about our PACER rating. So we do rate our streets every 2 years. So a 10 on our street is a brand new road. A 1 is one that hopefully you're not driving on because it's in pretty poor condition and needs to be reconstructed. And ideally, we don't really want to see our streets get lower than a 3. Once you kind of hit that 3-4 range, it can be pretty nasty. So, and then the same thing with our maintenance efforts on those streets. A 10, or we don't touch. A 9 maybe has a crack every now and then that we want to seal up and keep in good condition. So the maintenance treatments also get more expensive the worse you let your streets get. So the idea is once we get a new road, we try to keep it in that high range as long as possible with the low cost treatments. So that's a graphical analysis or table showing that. The next one is the table. It kind of breaks down where we're at. So I guess for the most part, we do have, I'd say 90% of our streets are in that fair to good and above category, which is great. We do have a small percentage down in that, poor to fair, which I always say we try to hide those streets. They are generally residential streets or low volume streets that not a lot of people go on, or they're Concord Ave that get beat up by semis and they eventually get in our capital improvement plan to get repaved and reconstructed. So, the goal is to make sure we're always doing something. I know a couple, so it's a little hard to maybe tell the story here. As we get into the transportation aids, we can do that too, but you'll see that dip in the good to excellent streets, the 7 to 10. After 2013, we kind of go from, in the 70s down into almost the low 60s. And then we start building back up in 2012. That was the last year we did any street reconstruction from a period of 2012 until 2020. So we had about an 8-year hiatus of not reconstructing our streets to try to, be mindful of some of the economic times that were happening and to try to keep debt low and costs low. But then that kind of started showing itself where we ended up with more streets ending up in that kind of progressively getting worse, and we've been playing a little bit of catch up the last few years. So I kind of talked about this one, keeping good roads good, kind of skip that. Deferring, delaying the maintenance costs, that's kind of that big part there. If you kind of use a rejuvenator and asphalt sealant, it has a shorter lifespan, but it also has a much smaller cost per square yard. Whereas a street reconstruction ends up getting pretty expensive. So if you did absolutely nothing to a new street, you'd probably get about 30 years out of it. Even on a low volume street, it'll start cracking and alligatoring just from Mother Nature itself. So there's still some things you should be doing on any street out there. And then there are different data sources to see how we compare to other communities around us. So this is, unfortunately, the data does lag a little bit. So it's from the Wisconsin Policy Forum. So they put in cost per capita, and then the DOT has everyone's street miles. So you can do some math and kind of get the cost per mile, because I think that's always important too. It's not just, you can have 100,000 people living in an apartment building that has, 1 mile of road in the community. And we don't have that. So, but if you look at it per capita, we actually are the second lowest kind of in the central Wisconsin area. We're the third lowest spending community per mile. So we spend about $9,700 less per mile than the average central Wisconsin community. So if we wanted to be average, that'd be about an extra $1.1 million we'd be spending per year for our streets. The next slide is kind of, where we're at there. So Schofield is kind of just below the average, and then, Merrill is just above it. And then there's Rothschild Point, Anago, Wausau, Marshfield, and Mosinee off on the far right. So we, so I think it just shows we do provide pretty good value for what we have here in the village of Weston. Next one is winter maintenance. So, we spend just a little over 400,000 kind of in the budget this year, which the primary expenses are wages and benefits. So, our staff, this past 8 days ago on that Sunday, several people were here for 16 to 17 hours. I think our highest hour employee was about 17 and a half hours that they were out plowing that day. Staff came back in the following Monday, and we're right back at it. So we get some of those events, put some data together for the county to kind of look at some disaster relief funds. I would say it was around $50,000 was kind of the estimated cost for that one storm event. So if we get a couple of those major storm events, that can add up pretty quickly. So, and that was for, kind of fuel, equipment, and labor costs altogether, material too.
So do you have to apply for the disaster relief?
So the county kind of files an initial estimate with the state, and then the state will do their analysis and say, yes, it was an official disaster, and and then there'll be a follow-up probably in a couple of weeks with showing them exactly what our costs were.
Do they offer it to every community then, or how do they?
So it's county-wide. So if the county qualifies, then each community would submit their own costs back to the state. And I believe Marathon County had to show that as a county as a whole, we had over, I think it was like $640,000 worth of costs. So.
Occurred in that day,
Or it was like a 48-hour window.
which seems like could be a bad representation because we weren't able to probably do all the things we want to do just based on manpower.
Correct,
All of
yeah.
them probably could have worked 24 hours, right? But we can't do that.
Yeah.
So like hypothetically, we could have spent easily that amount of money.
Yeah, and then it was just overtime wages too. So if anything that was worked at straight time on Monday wasn't allowed to be used.
Just out of curiosity, did you have to pull them? I mean, obviously your people can only work so long. Did you have to pull them or do anything? I just remember when I was driving to USAM, and Ross was pretty bad, and
Yeah.
Concord was being plowed by whoever calls for the other, for.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, 16 is pretty long. Some people are only out for about 8. Do try to shift them a little bit, just so that there is some relief, but I guess as this one maybe shows, as typical snow response, we have 14 staff members that are needed to do that. Our Public Works Department only has 10 full-time members. And right now we actually have 9. We have a new person starting Wednesday though, so we'll be back to 10. So we have 2 to 3 park staff that assist with every storm. 2 of them have permanent routes, as far as one has a truck and one has a end loader route. And then our utility staff, which we have 5 members of, also contribute there. So we don't really have a lot of extra people to be rotating through. Unlike, I know Marathon County generally has 2 shifts, so they can keep plowing the highways 24 hours. And I believe the city of Wausau has a second shift that can do part of, maybe their main thoroughfares, but not, a full plow route too. So, yeah. So sometimes we do try to, the goal really on that Sunday was to at least touch every road once, and some of the main, Schofield Ave a little more often, as well as, I know Ross, a lot of it got a little dicey at times, but yeah.
I was laughing.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny.
No, it was definitely not a great day, but it is what it is. So our street team, the majority of the staff there, it's our 10 frontline employees, so our fleet foreman, we have 1 mechanic, and then our 8 street employees. Myself, the public works director, I don't know, 15% of me or 20% of me goes to that budget. We have our staff engineer who does a lot of our, was hired a little over a year ago, right? No, 2 a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
We've hired to help with our street design, so that wasn't always consulted out. And then our street superintendent, in 2010 is when I was hired. We had 11 frontline employees there, so 15 years later, we do have 1 less person on the staff than we did then. So I guess always, I like to point that out too. And then outside tax dollars, how do we get funding? Transportation aids, which are based on our 6-year average. Grants, which are generally geared towards our capital projects. So Schofield Avenue last year had a $2.6 million DOT grant. Birch Street was reconstructed a couple years ago south of the highway. That was about $450,000. When we reconstructed Weston Avenue in between Alderson and Birch, we had about a $750,000 grant. We got a couple $2.2 million grants on Ross Avenue here. So Northwestern was a $700 and some thousand grant. I should probably be listing all these in writing, because in my time here, I think we've gotten over $10 million in grants for the village of Weston. So that's a lot of money that I know some people say grants are tax dollars, but it's tax dollars that are going to be spent either by us or somebody else in the state of Wisconsin. So I figured if they're going to be out there, we might as well be using them here in the village. And then we do get some revenue for performing maintenance in the town of Weston. So we do their snow plowing, their street patching, their mowing. Our revenue there kind of pays probably for about half an employee, maybe slightly more. So it is a little bit that helps fund ours, and we don't spend half the year there either. So it is a revenue source for us. So they go into our transportation aids. Like I said, I started here in 2010. In 2011, we hit our peak in transportation aids, and then they dropped pretty well, about 10% every year until 2020, and then I think, or maybe it was 21, we hit the rock bottom, and then we start coming back uphill here in the last few years. So right now we're at about 970,000 in 26, so we're still shy of our 2011 transportation aids, but I believe in about 2 more years we might be back up there. Transportation aid formula is calculated in 2 ways. It's either based on your number of lane miles or it's based on your 6-year average share of cost. So ours is calculated based on our share of cost because it's the larger amount. And I guess when I discussed that 2012 was the last time we did any major reconstruction, that gets reflected pretty well in that graph. Because when you stop spending money on streets, the state stops giving you money on streets. And then as you spend money on transportation, they give you money for transportation. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You can save money by not spending money, but then if you stop spending money, you stop getting money. And then it's not easy to get back right away because it takes time. So for 2026 here, if we were using the formula method, the little arrow on the bottom of that screen, the one before it. Yep. So that's pointing at what the formula right now would be calculating that we'd be getting. Our preliminary amount would be a little over $1.4 million. However, there is the cap of either it's only 115% of your previous year payment, which is the maximum. Otherwise, the minimum is 90% of your previous year aid. So we have a negative $438,000 adjustment, which is due to us being over that 115%. So our final payment this year is the 970 number. So the share of cost is generally that what it is, the share of cost, which for 2026 would have been about 16.4%. If you use that number, our share of cost is actually only about 11%. So we're missing about 5% of the payment, or not 5%, 30% of what that payment, a third of what we could be getting. So I guess onto the next one, just kind of looking at that 2011 to 26 era. Our public works operating budget in 2011 was just on about 2.37 million. In 26 here, we're at 2.2 million. So our aids went down and came back up, and our spending went down, and we're working our way back up slightly. So, in 26, we have decreased our public works operating budget in the past 2 years, and our transportation aids have increased 237-ish thousand. I guess the only word of caution I have, and I think as the public works director, it's my duty to say that, is when those aids went up prior to 2011, money was spent in areas other than streets. And then we stopped spending on streets or plateaued it to a certain extent. And then our revenues dropped, which then made revenues drop across the board for everything. So, if you go to the next graph there, it's tough when, I guess if money is allocated or it's kind of maybe meant for streets, I guess I just want to make sure we do keep it in that realm of where to go. I know sometimes we want to get creative with how we fund things or what we can do with money, but we got to understand how that money gets to us as well. So if we stop utilizing street, or if we start using street funding for something other than streets, eventually we're not going to have that revenue source as well. So
what would we use it on? What are you alluding to?
Other general fund expenses outside of the Public Works Department.
Got it.
It's a way to balance the budget.
It's a way to balance the budget when the tax dollars can't be used for something else. Oh yeah, I had one more. So again, so our overall budget for Public Works is 2.2 million. The other funds that I see or oversee for, I guess, the day-to-day operations here is the water utility, sewer utility, and stormwater utility. So total amount is 9.9 million. And, but the utilities are funded through utility rates and not tax dollars. So those are different funding sources. And I guess I don't have capital funds on here, but in general, we probably have about 3 to 5 million in capital expenditures each year as well. So it's a lot to keep track of throughout the year, but it's fun. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or if you wanna go. And then I did put the budget, yeah, that's right, I did put the budget status report after this for the operating fund. If there were other questions or we wanted to look at things in more detail.
If you get that emergency grant, the disaster relief, where does that go into?
It'd probably just come back into the general fund to
There's only a line that's disaster relief.
no, so if we, say we go over budget for overtime wages or
Just
something.
put it right in there.
It would kind of, it'd be an offsetting revenue for that expense.
Anybody else any questions?
How has our salt budget in general been this year?
Okay, I mean, we did reduce the salt budget this past year, slightly, about 50 grand. Next year, we might have to look at increasing it. We placed our order in, last week, and based on the quantity and if we have similar costs. So again, everything is a cooperative purchase through the state, so you give the state your number. All the communities generally do it that way. And then the state bids out a larger salt contract. And so in March, we give them our numbers. In April, they bid it out. And in May, they generally say, great, the company you're going to be working with next year is this. And this is how much it is per ton. So, and then we selected seasonal fill, so we can start taking it in December. So if we need to fill it, fill the shed a little bit over winter, we can do that. Otherwise, the majority of it will come in 2027.
Are you locked into that amount or are you able to, we have a mild winter? Does that affect it?
Yes, it's always kind of a game, right? Where you can, we make sure we order enough that it will get us through winter, hopefully. And then our storage capacity is such that you can, so we don't order so much that we're going to overflow our shed. And there's going to be some usage. So our total shed can hold about 2,000 tons. I think we got about 1,000 tons on hand currently, and we ordered 1,500. So, between, essentially now and next May, we'd assume we'd use at least 500 tons. But we don't have to take it all at once, so. And I guess, I don't know if that answers your question, but
I was just curious.
yeah, I mean, you don't want to end up with nothing and you don't want to end up with everything, so.
And we can't sell it.
And we can't sell it. We did look into that
I was
too.
gonna ask you, like, we always did salt. Why?
Many years ago, we used to, and we couldn't because we had to charge sales tax. And then we had people that sold salt that got a little upset because we got it for a lesser amount than.
Yeah, well, the contract we have with the state says we can't sell it, so.
Okay, well, then, yeah, we didn't get it.
Yeah, we can, if there was another community out there that needed salt and we had excess, we can allow them to purchase, from our allocation, but we can't make money off of it, no.
Anybody else?
During those bad snow days, do you get on a truck?
I have occasionally. I don't have a CDL, so I generally get to clear multi-use paths or plow cul-de-sacs with a pickup and a plow. But yeah, it's been done.
Out of curiosity, I think I kind of know the answer, but in the 10 years you've been here or been in, how many street, not public works, street employees have we had? And how many do we have now?
The highest, I guess as of Wednesday, we'll have 10. And the highest number we had was the first day I was hired, we had 11, and that employee was, I don't know if he was technically let go or he resigned. That was probably about 6 months into my tenure here. And after that, we stayed at 10. And then I think we got down to 8 at one point. And then we got back to 9, we got to 10, and then that 10th spot has been kind of hard to keep staffed right now.
Cause I know for years, we stayed with 9. That was the amount of street, snowplow street.
Yeah.
And, and that's a long time. And if you've got 10 now,
Yeah,
we've added a lot more streets and whatnot all since then.
correct, yeah.
Barb, can you just tilt the mic a little down to it?
Oh, okay. That was doing pretty good.
One-
Steve?
You mentioned lighting is what percentage of your budget?
About 10%.
10%. And just out of curiosity, when you're doing your development, is there standards that you have to follow? I mean, like Schofield Avenue is well lit, but so is the hospital at 2 a.m, and I'm just curious if there's certain standards you gotta follow, or is there engineering? Weston Avenue, there's nothing on Weston Avenue by the hospital there, and you could play baseball out there, at night.
Yes, I mean, so some of those lighting systems were put in for commercial corridors, like Schofield Ave, so there are systems out there that you can put kind of dimmer switches on. We've looked into that, and I mean, we have all LED lights now. So the amount of energy you'd save by having the lights turned down to say 20% and then come up to 100% when it detects traffic. The cost of that technology and the cost of the energy savings is, it doesn't make sense to put that in. I guess if you are saying,
I guess what I'm asking is
Yeah.
when you design the road is being designed,
yeah,
and is there standards that they require? I mean, everybody thought that out by the hospital would blow up with apartments and everything else.
Yeah.
It never happened. And I'm just curious, you seem to have maybe 2 or 3 times as many light posts as what are
Yeah.
needed, and the maintenance that goes along with it and everything else. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so there's a foot
Standards.
candle kind of requirement if you're gonna light a corridor continuously, so. So the pole spacing, the lighting, the output of the lumens, there is a calculation out there that says it should be this much so that a driver expects that much lighting as they come through. And that's if you do a corridor lighting, there is a standard. So besides Schofield Ave and the hospital area, a little bit on Camp Phillips, we don't have straight corridor lighting per se on like Ross Avenue here, or most of the residential development, or even Schofield Ave east of Birch Street. So in those areas, that's a lot more of just intersections or bends in the roadway or even dead ends. For developments, you try to have a light in, but there are different standards, yes, and it's unfortunate that you can't say, I want this to be on from, dusk until midnight or 2 a.m. or something like that. But even as people are driving, at night, I guess there's an expectation that if the corridor is lit, it's going to be lit to a certain standard.
Daniel, we used to kind of look at, like you said, an intersection, curve, or something that they had to be aware of, that wasn't just a straight road. It was, there was something reason for a light, because we used to get a lot of requests, and it was because their yard was dark.
Yeah.
They wanted a street light. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. Very good report. Okay, moving on to old business. Discussion and or action on reimbursement for clothing and equipment, including 1, amendments to chapter 5, job classification and compensation, section 13, clothing and equipment allowance. What's your pleasure in that? Oh, and then amendments to chapter 10, behavior and conduct section of your.
Would you like a motion on the floor, or would you like discussion before motion?
I would like a motion. I like to have motions before we discuss. Do I have a motion? Anybody want to do a motion? Get it on the floor? Doesn't mean you have to vote yes to it. It just needs to get it on the floor. Okay, I'll make a motion for amendments to chapter 5, job classifications, compensation, section 13, clothing and equipment allowance. Do I have a second?
What's the dollar amount? To approve it as written or?
Yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
In a second. Okay, on the question. Now's your time. Who'd like to speak first?
I would just point out in the RFC, at the last meeting, it was asked if we got some comparables from other municipalities. We do have comparables to those in the metro and some that are a little bit broader, because I had put it out on our administrator listserv. I did point out in the RFC that it's somewhat difficult to get a true comparison because municipalities handle this in so many different ways. A lot of them do uniforms, right? So their dollar amount is taking into account that they're providing those uniforms or they're providing apparel. So the other piece was there's at least one on the list and they don't necessarily have a policy. Employees just purchase what they need and they turn in receipts. If it gets aggressive, then they have that conversation. But otherwise, if it's not felt like it's taking advantage of, then it's not discussed, right? So that's not even necessarily a comparison to bring a dollar amount for. And then I did also just hand out, candidate Beck had asked some good questions of Michael, and I thought those questions, we should just disseminate that to the whole committee because they were good questions, good responses, a little bit more in depth on apparel and things that are purchased for safety gear. So I distributed that just before the meeting. I emailed it and then paper copy before the meeting.
Do you have any questions or comments on this?
Okay, thanks, Barb. I guess I just want to start by clarifying, my questions about this purchase last week were not to say that DPW Public Works is not doing a good job, as evidenced by this last week. Services weren't being provided accurately or to the highest level, or that money was being misspent. So I certainly hope that was not how my comments were taken. That was not how they were meant. However, I'm a very, objective person when it comes to fiscal decisions and looking at things and expenditures individually. I appreciate that Michael found an opportunity to save us $6,000 on a contract that was doing us no good and we weren't utilizing to its full potential. However, I guess where Mike and I differ is that just because we save money does not automatically mean we have to spend it. And that's ultimately what this is asking of us. Now, again, objective decision-making, that's why I asked for comparables. So looking at the email correspondence between Mike and Lisa. So we get 5 t-shirts, baseball style hat, a winter hat. We give them safety glasses, vest, a reflective raincoat. They're offered the uniform pants package, which is up to 11 work shirts, 11 pairs of pants, and 2 jackets. And just kind of paraphrasing the list, there's rain gear on there and there's some other stuff. So then I'm looking at our comparables, again, the objective part of it. And our list of clothing is much more cohesive than just about every single comparable on here. And all of them, with the closest being 500, but the rest of them offer considerably less than additional $600 on top of it. I think for us to be comparable to what's on here, I think all the things that we provide, and I get the fact that we're taking away Cintas, so then I guess those shirts and pants wouldn't be on there. And I understand that, but also understand too that, providing somebody 11 shirts and 11 pairs of pants is a lot of clothes. So for all of those reasons, I would not be in favor of raising this to $600. I'm comfortable, to be honest with you, with what we give and the $300, but I mean, from a reasonable standpoint, if we maybe went up to $400 to compensate for some of the shirts and pants loss. But I don't think as a whole, as a village, we have to be very intentional and objective when we're looking at spending decisions, because right now we are going to referendum, we're asking for more. And again, not condemning any department, any part of the village, saying that we're not doing it right. But what we're doing right now is not fiscally sustainable. So whenever there's something in front of us of a potential expenditure, we need to be very objective and intentional and make sure that it's meeting, our first priorities first, and then some of those tertiary things we may not be able to provide or may not be able to do to live within our means. So for those reasons, I would not be in favor of moving it up to $100.
Anyone else?
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You would cancel the Cintas contract and not increase the stipend?
I'm comfortable with that,
maybe
or
to-
potentially go up to $400 to compensate for some of the pants and shirts.
I feel like Michael wasn't, and I feel like we're doing this as an or, like, we either cancel the Cintas contract and we don't increase. I don't think that's what he was wanting, right? Like, if we cancel Cintas and do nothing, then we should have just kept Cintas, right? Like, because then these people are out all the clothes. And I'm looking at WASA specifically, like, they offer 11 sets, which is roughly what we offer, and about $300. Now, if we go and we say, okay, we're gonna cancel Cintas and stay with 300, us compared to WASA, we're doing significantly less than what they were doing. And Rothschild, right? They don't do any kind of contract, but they do $500, right? So it doesn't feel like it's a one or the other. Like, we either have to keep Cintas and keep the 300 or get rid of Cintas and increase it something. Otherwise, those employees are all out at those 10 to 11 sets of clothes that they would have to rotate through each week. And I don't know what kind of message that would send to our staff to say, like, oh, we're gonna cancel the Cintas contract, but give you nothing in return. Just what you were getting to purchase roughly the boots and maybe a pair of pants. And then the goggles or the glasses.
Yeah, I guess.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I guess if I could say something too. I know we're the finance committee, but we're also the human resource committee. These guys care about what they do. I mean, I haven't had anybody ever have issues with calling in and saying, oh, I can't make it in for this plow event. I can't, work that late shift there. I mean, there's a certain element of showing the staff that we care about them and value them. Every time we have a comparison, we're always looking at what does everybody else do? And for the most part, we're generally the low one. We're not average, we're generally low. There's other communities out there right now looking to hire a person. And I can tell you that their starting salaries, their salaries in general are higher than what we pay our employees. So it's sometimes this benefit, if we increase everybody $2, that's 20 grand to our budget easily right there. So I think, to Stephanie's point, we sometimes need to look to, and how does that, if you were an employee, how do you take that? You just worked a 17-hour shift to make sure everybody could, drive safely. You came back the next morning at, 3, 4 a.m. to do it again so that hopefully people could get to work. And now you were given a service and you're having it taken away. Our employees deal with chemicals. Our utility staff, they deal with wastewater. They get stuff on them that you guys don't want to be touching. And our street guys, asphalt, concrete, stuff like that, it eats through clothes. These aren't people working in controlled environments and office settings where it's, clothing that you can wear for 2 years and, be good at it. A lot of it, it does get stained, it gets damaged. Like I said, when employees leave or if all of a sudden they, gain weight, lose weight, and they need to get a new pair of pants, Cintas is happy to size them and get them a new pair of pants, but then they go, oh, there's too many stains on this, or that knee is too worn, so we can't put it back in our rental fleet, and we're gonna charge you $40 for that pair of pants. And I guess that's what I was trying to get out of, was having to pay those extra charges, because that's why I said there's gonna be a cost savings, because we're not gonna be getting those extra charges anymore. And I guess that's really what I was hoping for, the acknowledgement that we are saving that funding, that money. If the goal was we need to save $6,000, I am happy to move that out of the public works budget in some other way, shape, or form. So I really don't want to be taking something that the staff is already getting away from them. Some of them that have been here for a while, when we saw that decrease in funding, we lost longevity benefits, we lost other healthcare benefits. There are other things that these employees have lost over the years. And I feel like every time I bring something to you guys, it's hard because I feel like it's always going to be something that's taken away on the aspect that it's being responsible for the taxpayers. But even that work that these guys perform, being able to pour concrete, being able to trim trees, being able to do these things with our in-house staff versus contracting it, that saves us money. That's why we are on the low end of the spectrum for spending money on our streets. You know, some of those costs we can't control, like electricity for streetlights. It's there and that's a fixed cost. We can't do much with that. But the other things that we can do, that's how we saved money and kept things going. You know, we bought a crack sealing machine and we do it ourselves now. We figured it out. You know, we had a concrete guy that was the former deputy director for a while. He showed these guys how to form up curb, how to get sidewalk going, how to do all that. You know, those pricey contracted services, we watch, we take notes, we figure out how to do it, and then we go do it ourselves and stop contracting that service. So, you know, we're pretty creative with what we do. And I think the staff deserve some recognition for that. And I guess this to me isn't even recognition. It's just, we're still providing you with the same service we've been providing you with, just in a different format.
So I guess I'm just as a continuation of that. Okay.
Oh, all I was just gonna say is, two things. One is I definitely would rather see the money be going directly to our employees than through a middle party that's making money off of us. And I think it is hard to analyze when you're looking at numbers, where some of those numbers are also benefit driven as well. You know, working in a career where I work under a contract, like sometimes contract negotiations have, I wouldn't call them hidden benefits, but they're, instead of putting it straight to salary, you're saying you're getting a benefit here under this line item, you're getting a benefit here, and it's a way to still provide some benefits to the employees without it being straight in the salary, which can create more costs in other ways. So I think it's hard for you to portray that adequately as a director, and it's also hard for a committee to look at that and be like, okay, how much of this is what they actually need and how much is it benefit driven? But it is important that we keep those benefits in mind because these people do hard work and they're exposed to a lot of things, so.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we had a boot receipt turned in the other day that was over $300. And the employee works in our utility and they, you know, we deal with some chemicals that if they get spilt, will eat through a normal pair of shoes. So he opted for it was like $100 upgrade, but he's hopeful that these pairs of shoes will get him through a full year versus having to buy, two $200 pairs of shoes that get ruined throughout the year. So.
Okay, great.
So I guess I don't care for the implication that because I am questioning a fiscal purchase, I don't care about our employees.
No,
I've held leadership roles in the public sector for a number of years. I am well aware that people are your number one and most important commodity. Understand that all the way. However, again, I also sat through the fire department referendum presentation the other night. And they don't even have enough bodies to get in the door to do their job even remotely safely. And so if I have to choose spending $600 on giving someone clothes to wear, spend $600 on getting bodies to respond to 911 calls, I can tell you where my vote is always going to be. Now, that doesn't mean that $600,000 is on the back of Public Works. I think it's a mindset overall that we need to have as a committee and as leadership in the village of we can't sustain what we have right now. And so we do have to keep getting more and more money, whether that's through referendums or tax increases or whatever it might be, or we have to determine what can't we afford. And so we have to be more intentional and more objective when it comes to looking at money. even if it's only a couple $100 here and a couple $100 there. We're not doing it right now. We're not living within our means. And so that takes some hard discussions. And again, for that reason, I care about our people. We have great people in the village, but that doesn't change the situation that we're currently in.
I just want to correct, with the fire referendum, it's not that it's not sustainable. We would like to add staff. We produce a balanced budget and stay within our budget annually, as does Safer. It is not that anyone went over budget, it's not that anybody overspent, but we have identified the need to add additional staff. There's no way within our restraints that we could add that additional staff within the levy limit. So I hear that we're not sustaining, we're not spending correctly, and that's untrue, because we produce a balanced budget and we stay within budget, but we can't do that great of an addition to the budget. So I don't think it's fair to say that we're not sustaining, that we're not sustainable. Because we could sustain the staff that we have,
Correct.
but we
But we're
couldn't
not-
add additional
Not
staff.
sustaining at a safe level for them to do their job. So that's where I guess, yes, I get we have a balanced budget, but we have a balanced budget without addressing a very important public safety need. So I guess that was my point, is not that we aren't balanced this year. We're not going to referendum for operating costs because we can't pay our operating bills this year. We're going there because we can't fund one of our departments, which I would say, from what I've heard, everybody values is a very high importance department. We can't properly fund them within our current confines, which then again causes us to have to reflect to figure out why can't we and what can we do to change that and make it different.
I think if that's, like, I get what you're saying. I think if that's true, like, if we're truly in a state of emergency, like, hey, we need this funding and we can't do it with our budget, then I think there's other places that we can make dramatic changes that I don't think I would be in support of. But any member of this committee can make recommendations to say, you know what, I don't think we need this park open anymore, or we're not gonna maintain it this year. We don't need these certain things that benefit our quality of life in this community that we enjoy. But if we're truly like, hey, we need to cut the fat, it's not fat, but we're trimming all these other things. We can do that, we can be dramatic, but is that what we wanna do? So we're going to referendum because we identify a need to better ourselves, but I don't think it's at the cost of. And I'm not set on the number, I'm just saying, I don't think it's at the cost of our employees' benefits, because that could create a lot of other issues as well. So.
No, and I wasn't insinuating that you didn't care about our staff, but I think we just need to keep that in mind. And I guess that's why I put in there in our transportation aids, and I was going through that. We've kept a status quo budget, even though our aids in the last 2 years has increased $230-some thousand. Like that money didn't go to streets, that money didn't go to public works. So I guess that's where that was a point of emphasis, is if we don't use that money, it might look good for 3, 4, 5 years while that creeps up in that 6-year average. But then all of a sudden that's gonna start dropping, and all of a sudden we don't have a revenue source to plug that hole. And that's when the dramatic ones really have to start coming in, because there is no other way to do it.
I agree with both of you, points that you guys are making here, and out of fear of going around in circles for the rest of the evening, I'm okay with like $400, and we should test it and see how it goes. I understand exactly what you're saying, Mike. I do, but I also feel an immense responsibility to the public of what we're spending the money on. And to say that you're gonna double it because you got rid of this contract, I just have a problem with that.
We're already spending the money, right? If we cancel, the money that we are talking about.
It's been canceled.
No, it hasn't.
No.
It's been a recommendation to the board.
You made a recommendation, right, but I mean, that, they haven't, okay.
They have it.
But
And honestly, if the recommendation is to move it,
Go back to the old.
I'm gonna say let's renew the contract, cause it's, as I put in that data to Lisa, I mean, we spent what, $321 an employee. And then we spent $600 or something close to that in shop rigs. So we're getting rid of that. And maybe it's only $30 an employee that we save, and maybe it's, $300 in shop rigs we save. There is a savings. And if we do need to make a budget cut somewhere, let me cut somewhere in my budget that isn't an employee benefit. If you came to me and said, Michael, we need to cut the public works budget another 2% next year, I can bring you something that cuts the budget by 2%. It's hard, if my task is to manage the staff, I want to be able to manage the staff and figure out how that budget gets utilized and not have other people say this is how you have to allocate that funding. Because we do have a good culture, we do have good employees. And I mean, we had the employee survey done. I don't know how much we spent on that, but that was, and the results came back and said, people think this is a great place to work. And that it's a great place to work because we provide the little things. It's maybe not the best paying job. It's not the best insurance job. It's not the best whatever, but we do have a culture where people want to be accountable to their teammates. They don't want to let other people down. And I think that's important. And, I guess in my own head, maybe I've been here too long. I have flashbacks to 2011, 2012, when things start going the other way. And there, it wasn't pretty as you start having to make bigger cuts to budgets and not fill empty roles. That's when we saw more staff turnover because, eventually people said, I don't want to be here anymore. And you had the couple that stayed and kept fighting through it. And, now we've got a lot younger staff. We've got more, some newer employees where 6 years is a pretty tenured employee. And, I want to keep building on that versus now having them go, all right, let's go over to Wausau. It seems like they've got a better job market, or Rothschild or somebody else. I think at the grand scheme of things, we can say we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. I mean, I guess that's what I was trying to show you guys is we're low. Whether we're spending it per capita or per mile, we're lower than pretty much everybody around us. Our utility rates reflect the same thing. We provide a pretty good service at a pretty low rate, however you want to look at it. And I don't know. I guess sometimes I think we get caught up on the little things, and I get it. Like, that's why I brought it to you guys. I could have just ignored this and been like, let's renew the Cintas contract and keep going. And everyone would be like, oh, okay, how much? Oh, it's a 2% renewal. That's a great rate. Let's lock it in at only a 2% increase. Instead, I was like, hey, I think we can save some time and cost here. And apparently it wasn't enough. I don't know, I guess is a sentiment I'm getting from a couple of you. And I think we can probably agree to disagree, but I think we've shown that we can do a pretty good job keeping our budget status quo or reducing it over the years, so.
I think it's important we agree to disagree because sometimes that's how work gets done. Steve, so you were recommending 400. Frank, did you have a recommendation?
I said either the same or I'd be fine with considering 400.
What was the same?
Same as like the $300 with just the clothing we provide now, or upping it with the clothing we provide now, minus the contract, of course, and nothing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Everybody else done now? I guess I kind of like what Rothschild does. And I think I mentioned at the last meeting about providing a washer and dryer so they do not have to take those clothes home and wash them in their wash machine. Believe me, you don't want to do that. I had a husband that was a millwright and I had to do that for a lot of years. And then when they provided the washer and dryer, it was great. And he did some pretty, blue jeans, they didn't last a full year, but they lasted a pretty long time. I guess I just think maybe the 500 with the washer and dryer and having, I don't know if you got enough in there. Say if somebody comes and they got acid burns all over their pants, that you would replace them.
Sure.
I mean, normal wear and tear is one thing, but if they destroy their shirt or their, I mean, well, we provide them with the shirts anyway, so, but I mean, if the blue jeans are destroyed by what happens, that they would be replaced. That's my thought. It would save a little, but yet still not take everything away.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Right.
It's presented, so Just as a-
You want to repeat that motion so we know what we're voting on?
I don't have it written down, sorry.
the motion would be to recommend the changes as presented, so it would reflect the $600.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
The motion is as written currently. in the-
Correct.
Right. Okay,
Which would be 600.
600, yep, okay. I have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hi.
I didn't vote.
You didn't
so
vote.
You didn't vote?
I didn't vote because I would vote on a tie.
I think we need a roll call vote, please, just so we have it for record.
Daniels,
Aye.
Ermeling,
No,
Lobserell,
Aye.
Minell,
No.
Olson,
No.
Solberg,
No.
Then motion pass.
okay, so, may I have another motion?
I make a motion to change the dollar amount to $400. All things being equal, I guess.
I have a motion to provide the funds for $400.
So just to clarify, because it's written on here, we do 400 for the rest of 26 and then 600 annually starting in 27. So are we saying 400
I'm saying
just period going forward or just for the rest of 26? Because that's, it's written in here in that way.
I figure the way I was viewing it, it was 400 per year.
Okay.
Per year.
Are we gonna provide a washer and dryer or anything?
Oh, I just was trying to keep it simple.
I have a question. If we vote, what happens if we can't, if we keep voting no? Do we just go back to what we had or we have to come up with a new resolution right now?
Then we would send it to the village board with no recommendation.
And I apologize, there was a motion, was there a second?
Do I have a second to that motion?
400?
400.
On the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
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 So the opposite on that one for, it's the same vote, but just still in the negative.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a roll call song for the minutes?
Daniels,
No.
Ermeling, Lobserell,
No.
Minell,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Solberg,
Yes.
that's 3-3.
Okay, then the motion fails. Okay, do we want a third motion?
I'll try a motion of $500 annually.
With the washer and dryer?
I'm not saying anything. That's my motion, $500 annual.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
A second.
And to clarify, would it be $500 this year too, or 400 this year, 500 going forward?
I should have been thinking of this year too, but I was kind of, it would be 400 for the rest of the year, 500 annual starting 2027.
Okay.
Did I have a second? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, Evan. I wasn't sure. I thought I heard it, but I wasn't sure. I'm sorry. Okay. On the question,
You want to do a roll call just from?
yes.
Daniels. No. Ermeling,
Yes.
Lozerall,
Yes.
Manal,
Oh.
Olson,
No.
Silver.
Yes.
It's a tie.
Motion fails.
Okay, so I guess, unless somebody else has got a motion?
I guess I'd like to hear from Michael about this washer and dryer since we've opened the door. Like, do you think that would
Can
be?
be purchased in regular operations. I don't.
Right.
Well, I guess I wasn't really thinking the cost. I guess, is that something that you think staff would use, that they would see as a perk? Or would it sit there dormant and collect dust?
No, I think, we've talked about this with staff too. Shop rigs, definitely if we had a washer dryer here, we can wash those ourselves, and like I said, we've had people that have had unfortunate baths while doing sewer cleaning and some
Yes.
other stuff like that, so definitely would, that was one of their hesitancies is if I don't have a way to wash these clothes, what do I do with them when they have, human waste on them or get something else on them, grease stains, people are like, well, I don't know if my wife's gonna want me bringing home grease stains all over my clothes and getting that mixed in with the rest of the wash. So I think a washer, would be a benefit to having. And, we can find a way to get it hooked up in one of the shops in the back, so it's not just out in the elements. And those things.
So with that, I'll make a motion to do $400 for the remainder of 26 and going forward 2027 annually, also with the purchase of a one-time purchase of a washer and dryer to account for the needs of cleaning for the staff.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second that.
We'll try this again. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Ow.
Okay. We got one.
Oh, that's right, yes. Okay.
Okay, got to recommend to the board. All right.
I love it. Feel the emotion.
Yes. Okay, so I gotta stop and think here. Now we got amendments to chapter 10.
That was all in that
Is
same.
that all included? Okay, that's what I thought, but I thought, oh, I don't want to forget it either. All right, so new business. Anything? Remarks from staff?
Don't forget about the outplant survey.
That's probably said enough.
Remarks from committee members. Stephanie? Mhm.
No.
Brett? Okay, and I have none. Future items. Anything that you'd like to bring up at the next meeting?
I don't think they talked about the other item. This is part of the last discussion.
Valerie, not on mute, not on mute.
Okay, the next meeting, we're tentatively looking at Tuesday, April 21st, because the new board members will be, on Tuesday, aren't they? Yeah, they'll be officially sworn in. So then we can have, our meeting,
We would move all the meetings to Tuesday just because that's the way statute is written, is that newly elected takes, goes into place on the third Tuesday in April. So we would have tourism at probably 4, we'd have finance at 5 and board at 6.
my only question I had is because the new members will have been, they can be seated on that day.
Yes.
I didn't go with it. if committee members will not have been reappointed.
Committee members would still go through the end of the month. It would just be the trustees that have that change. So you would likely on the 21st would do your appointments for your trustees and your new committee members. The only one that really affects is parks, right? Because they have that later in the month meeting, but committee members go through the end of the month. So it's really for trustees because they only go.
And the fact that we're not up for reelection, so we're good.
We just thought it was easier to put them all on the same day than to have two on Monday and one on Tuesday.
Right. But I thought about that afterwards. I'd be going, okay, you know, if they're getting, but reappointments haven't been made, but you are all good till the end of the month. And we're not gonna be. You won't lose because we aren't running. Okay. All right. So anything else?
Tuesdays at 5.
Tuesday likely will be at 5 because we'll have tourism at 4. The only thing that might change that, we didn't get how many grants we have, but if we have a lot of grants from tourism, we might have to adjust slightly just for time frame, but it'll be around 5.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Steve.
Second.
On the question, none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Adjourned at 5:46.